Good afternoon, good early evening, gratitude blooming family and community. I'm Soultree and I'm so honored to hold this Tuning Inwards workshop session about voicing our needs and boundaries with all of you. This topic and this community is very near and dear to my heart. I've been working with Gratitude Blooming for over a year thanks to my friend and soul sister Melody Masakupan, and they've really fostered my development as an artist and as a creator and as a heart-centered being and collaborator. So I am very honored to share this topic of voicing needs and boundaries, tuning inward, using our voice, our sounds, our practice, our life practice to better the way that we are able to voice our needs, to create our boundaries so that we could live our fullest selves, our fullest lives, without having to lie and compromise for others, which is an experience that I have had to do often as a person that was born assigned female at birth, as a person who became undocumented at a young age, and as a person who has had to migrate. There are a lot of experiences I've had as a person of color who is not from this land, and not even from the land that I grew up in, where I felt like I had to silence my needs and boundaries. And even for folks that don't share those experiences with me, I'm sure you can relate in your own way. So thank you for being here and for taking the time. These 30 minutes I hope will support all of us in moving forward with our truth and sharing our light and also our shadows with the world without having to be ashamed, without having to lie, without having to make ourselves small for someone else's convenience. And so that's really the intention of today, and I'm excited and I hope you're ready for it. So I just want to start with calling in gratitude and letting these cards, these beautiful nature reflections, guide our session today. Oh, so our first card is Lilac, and it's actually a wild card for us to imagine our own words of wisdom and gratitude. And since this is not a back and forth workshop, it's a live video, I'm going to say and share the word sovereignty. The word sovereignty, which a word that me and my sister Melody talk about often. And the reflection question I would offer for that is, how are you honoring your sovereignty within your relationships and connections to collective, family, the whole, and to groups? So when it comes to sovereignty, how can we honor ourselves while valuing the collective at the same time? I'll have to revisit this video again to to remember what I said, but the next card is Community, the Bleeding Heart, number 8. Which hearts in your community are you grateful for? How can you express it to them? I have a lot of hearts in my community that I'm grateful for, and I'm directly working with most of them or have in the past. So I appreciate this question, and I will express it to them soon. And this last one, Sorrow. Sorrow can come from the courage to love. Acknowledge the bravery behind any sorrow you notice or feel. It's the Touch Me Not, number 16 card. Yeah. Sometimes we get that sorrow from the courage to loving others as well as loving ourselves. There is bravery in choosing ourselves and choosing the whole. And that's not, they're not mutually exclusive. You know, they can exist in the same multi-dimensional universe. So let's honor that. So before we begin, excuse the loud noise. I'm on a busy street, so let's just take time to notice the nature around us. I welcome you to close your eyes and notice the nature within you. Inviting our breath to enter our nose, traveling past our chest, into our bellies, down our sacral, our sacred spaces, and back into the earth, and releasing with a sigh. And on the next couple of breaths, as we deepen our inhale and exhale with a sigh, notice what you think about when we say needs and boundaries. When we say tuning inward, voicing our needs and boundaries, what is coming up for you? Slowly bring yourself back into this space, back into this conversation we are having amongst ourselves, within ourselves, and with the universe. As we enter the fall season, it is so important that we are selective with what we are choosing to keep us warm through the winter, to keep us warm as the sun shines a little bit less brightly around our neighborhoods, in our sky, especially in certain communities. Thinking about my Midwest family, people that have really intense winters. And so I wanted to break down this concept of voicing our needs and boundaries in 4 sections of the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, and mental. And these are all one and the same. But when we break it down based on our current lived experience, the current way that our world views these elements and aspects of ourselves, we can support ourselves in getting back into that oneness with the self, oneness with the world. And so I break it down in these ways just because I know that, and many other spiritual and creative and scientific practitioners know that it takes time. It's going to take time for us to really to get to the healing place that we all need and deserve. And that is the intention and the goal of today, is tuning inward so that we can create a better world for ourselves and for those around us, and for the future that we can't even predict what exactly that will look like, and we are collaborating on it right now. So in speaking about that, covering the area of spirit and needs and boundaries when it comes to spirit. So much of what we think about when it comes to spirit is controlled. It has been controlled for millennia and dictated for us. Some people are very afraid of their own spirit or listening to spirit. And there are many different entities out there that are wanting to demonize our awareness and connection to source, to actually being connected to God and Creator. And so when we voice our needs and boundaries around what we're feeling spiritually, it is truly an act of rebellion for the majority of the world right now. We are going through a really massive shift together of challenging the old paradigm that has been in power for millennia. And I'm not even going to name them because we all know what they are. We are all sensing what they are for each of us, and it means different things for every single person. And so I'm just going to leave it at that and just say that the spiritual realm and our relationship to spirit is a place that needs one of the most intense levels and deep levels of healing. Our relationship to our divine connection to all of life as if they are ourselves, but also claiming our space spiritually from the experiences and energies that don't serve us. There are so many tools and practices in each person's culture and each person's local environment that can reinforce what spiritual boundaries and vocalizing those needs would look like. And so our breath work is one of the ways that we can create spiritual boundaries and honor our energy. Another practice is our imagination, our visualizations, the things that we think about. Another thing would be our prayers, the way that we pray to Creator, to Source, whoever you pray to, and what you pray about. Those are all for you. Each person has their own right to express that and to determine what that connection and creation is. And when it comes to physical, I just want to share some practices as a vocalist, as a person that has been studying sound and music for the majority of my life. We have to practice speaking these things. We have to practice asserting ourselves vocally, especially if we come from cultures and families and communities that, and also identities that haven't been as supportive of people in our bodies, in our expression, of us being able to speak our truth. And so I really encourage all of us to self-massage, to tune into the body, to listen to when the body's in pain and address it with food, with activity that is not always going to be pleasant, but is going to be worth it. I'm talking about exercise and fitness, which I didn't grow up with much. And so I am currently entering a program, a reprogramming with Mallory and another sister of ours, Cheryl, through Conscious Living, to help me be able to honor my body, my physical body. And in terms of voicing our physical needs, I would encourage us to also do some prep work. When I sing, I have to warm up my voice, otherwise I will strain it. And so how, especially when we are sharing something challenging, whether it's a song or a speech or a conversation or a confrontation, we have to practice these if we want to come from a place of wisdom and higher knowing and of really divine justice, I would say. It has to be, not necessarily rehearsed, but we have to be intentional. And so what are those exercises that we're going to employ? For me, I do lip trills, just letting the vibrations flow through your mouth, doing different sounds, letting yourself warm up slowly, going through scales if you're a pianist, like from do to do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. That's not even in pitch, but I'm just trying to give you ideas of what can be your self-practice. This time we're having together is not really focused on music as much, but sharing with you that if we're going to share something on a physical plane, we're talking about physical here, we have to prepare the physical, the instrument, the voice, the throat, the mind, the body. We have to train that self. We have to train from that place in order to get that message through. And so if we are struggling in certain areas of our life, but we're not dedicating energy or practice to working through it, then we're going to continue to repeat that cycle. And what we are trying to do here when we tune inward is to break that cycle of violence and self-oppression, really. And the next area I want to talk about is emotions. Our emotions are very much tied to our body. Whatever we, like I said, it's all interconnected, but whatever we feel is also speaking through our body. Whichever areas or body parts we have pain in, it speaks to some kind of emotion that is also living in that place. And just to tie it in with the spiritual, a lot of different faiths, indigenous practices, believe that most of our diseases come from this spiritual place before it even manifests into the emotional and mental, and then into the body. The body is the last one to know, and I received that from another sister named Irene in Chicago. And our emotions are always telling us something. Especially, we're going to be talking about our anger in a few sessions and meeting it where it's at. But our emotions tell us a lot about what needs to be vocalized physically. And when we don't address those emotions, they end up, as you know, exploding. And so how are we listening to that? And not just, venting about it, but acknowledging where it comes from and the patterns that are leading to that, naming those emotions. Is our lack of boundaries or our inability to vocalize our needs, is it coming from shame? Is it coming from guilt? Is it coming from a feeling of unworthiness? Is it coming from historical abuse? Where is this, where is this imbalance coming from? And what is the name of that feeling? And when we attach that name, we can work on that specific energy level because we know it now. We don't have to be afraid of it. It doesn't have to be this elusive thing that keeps coming up at us like, oh shit, I just let my, this person appealed to my ethos, to my emotions, and I let my boundaries go again. I didn't voice my needs because I was so empathic. This is something that empaths deal with often, and I have had to go through many different phases of transforming and transmuting myself because I was not able to express my emotions until they got so far gone, because I was letting people cross my boundaries, not expressing my needs, not allowing others to support me in my needs, and it just became this repetitive cycle that I've had to repeatedly learn to break. And I'm still learning. It doesn't mean that I don't encounter these challenges still. I just share it with you all because I'm also still learning, and I think it's a worthy conversation to have and continue to have as we evolve. And finally, I want to share about the mind. Our mind is so powerful, and whatever our mind is ruminating on is an area that needs support, or that needs work, or that we are also manifesting. And the more that we dedicate our thought into our discomfort around needs and boundaries, sometimes we end up ruminating. So with the mind, we have to introduce different practices, and not just with the mind, but especially with the mind. So with the spirit, the body, the emotions, and the mind, we have to introduce different practices that interrupt those cycles, that allow us to refresh and restart. And I find that there's so many influences in the world that are keeping us from being able to be in control of our own minds. And so when we tune inward, a lot of times it is so hard for people to let go of their thoughts and to just acknowledge, like, those are just thoughts, and I can just be present and feel the revelation of just being here and not worrying and, astral projecting my body into another place because I'm thinking about the past or the future or what happened in the recent present. So the mind is very powerful, and it is also fragile, and it also needs boundaries. We are in a hyper-stimulated society right now, a hyper-technologized society, and we are evolving with it presently. really acclimating to this higher stimuli world. And we have to balance those practices of exposure and kind of like not necessarily withdrawal, but just removing ourselves and taking time away from whatever it is that's been on your mind that is holding you back from speaking your needs and your boundaries. And I wanted to share a little tool. This is a tool that I use for tracking my menstrual cycle, but also for just tracking life. 4 seasons, 4 phases of the different menstrual cycle. And like I said, this is the 4 elements that we're looking at of spirit, physical, emotional, and mental. And I want to share a practice with all of you of just creating this wheel for yourself on this is cardboard, recycled material. I love to use recycled material, 0 waste. And taking a moment to look at the areas in your spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental life that you are aware that you need to assert and express needs that are not being met and boundaries that are being crossed, that are being harmful for you. Because any discomfort that's coming up for you is telling you something. That something is not really exactly right here. And nothing's ever going to be perfect. But we want things as much equilibrium and, fairness, egalitarian ways to be what we work towards. Like, we want that. We want everybody to feel like they're worthy. We want everybody to feel like their needs are being met. We want everybody to have their boundaries acknowledged and honored and respected and uplifted. And that's going to look different across the board. And we have to look at our own boards and encourage other people to share their own boards so we're not constantly causing harm to one another. Unfortunately, we have a world that doesn't afford us many breaks or silence, to the point where it took a pandemic for more people to reflect and tap in. And it's an unfortunate circumstance that is also illuminating a lot and providing a lot of blessings and opportunity for people to shift. And so I just encourage us to take a moment. I'm going to do this practice with all of you as well, and post on my own Facebook and Instagram about it. You can find me at Soultree Sounds to complete this practice with all of you, and we can check in next week. I will be doing 3 more sessions with Gratitude Blooming every Wednesday this month to prepare us for the fall and winter, because those are the times we're going to be able to really reflect and decide and allow ourselves to shift intentionally and proactively for the betterment of ourselves and the betterment of our future. And let me see if there's anything else I want to share. I also want to encourage us to notice those encounters that make us feel like we can't assert our needs and boundaries. And what is it about those encounters? What do you notice about how you feel physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally around that person, around that situation, around that topic that is preventing you from being able to express yourself? And that's where the work begins. This is just really, a support conversation for each of us to seek techniques that will support us to vocalize, to communicate, to even feel like we deserve to have our needs and boundaries honored and met. And at the same time, noticing those moments that you're not able to communicate your needs and boundaries. Notice when you are able to communicate your needs and boundaries. Who are the people What are the situations that do make you feel safe, that do make you feel honored, that make you feel strong, that allow you, encourage you to be your full self and not have to apologize or compromise for that? That's where so much hope and possibility and abundance lives. And investing in that and in those spaces, seeking support and cultivating within those spaces, environments, communities, will inevitably allow you to overcome and introduce these same practices and feelings in those moments where you are not able to voice, to tune inward enough that you can tune outward to the world. This is such a powerful and important topic to me because it's been so hard for me to express my needs as a person, because I have been raised to value the collective and the family before myself, and to hide as an immigrant and undocumented person and as a queer person. But the more that I practice, the more that I'm giving opportunities to speak on these issues and these challenges and these topics, the more that I push myself to work through my own imbalances, the more free and liberated and joyful and at peace I feel. And we all will always still have our struggles, but there's infinite value to valuing yourself, giving yourself the time and space to have reflective activities, to have, to do arts and crafts just about yourself. It's not selfish whatsoever. Someone might think that it's selfish, but it is centering yourself. It gives you more capacity to build. It allows you to be a better example for yourself and for others because you're being true. You're not having to lie or make yourself small or resent anyone anymore. You're being honest. And, there's not much more the world can ask of you than that. And so as we come back full circle in the topics of sovereignty, community, and sorrow, I'm just tuning into the message that in order to be sovereign as a person and as a people, alongside community and connection, this wholeness, it is not without sorrow. It is not without internal deaths and external deaths. It's not without causing pain and being pained. But it is about being honest and being the best, working towards and being the best person that you can be. And that's really the legacy we're leaving behind in this life. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk about that and to tune into that frequency. So thank you so much for taking time for yourself, for being open and interested in investigating this topic. And remember, we're going to be doing this activity together, noticing the moments that we feel we can and cannot express our needs and boundaries when it comes to our physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental feelings and awareness. These systems are your companions. They are your allies. They are your alarm to wake you up, to wake us all up to the potential of what we can fully and truly be. And I wish nothing less of sovereignty and self-determination and homeostasis and balance and justice for every single one of us and every single one of you that's on this call or on this video, I should say. So yeah, that's just a little bitty intro to what this season holds, and we're gonna move forward from there. We're gonna be tuning into our anger and meeting it where it's at. We're gonna be tuning in to our inner child, and then we're gonna close out the month by having a Reiki and a sound journey that will support us and fully, immerse us in this awareness and our transition, our intentional journey into the next season and into the next phase of our world and universe. Because as we are seeing from the example of this pandemic and quarantine, time changes, and time can change so fast, even when we have felt that it has changed so slow before. So there's just so much in the unknown. And so let's keep tuning inward and breathing into that unknown together. We're not alone, and thank you so much to Gratitude Blooming for, again, inviting me into this space. Thank you for all the previous pollinators. Thank you for, just this connection. And I thank the source for bringing us together today, and let's stay in touch. I look forward to seeing what you create and what comes up from this exchange for you and for myself too. Ingat, take care.